For more on the Super Bowl and the Patriots, their coaching staff, some of these moves they've been making this offseason, we welcome in Tom E Curran of NBC Sports Boston. How are we doing this week, Tom?
Top of the world. Top of the world.
Excellent.
Let's start with...
How are you boys?
Oh, we're doing great. We're doing phenomenal. Talking Super Bowl halftime shows. Great to have the Chiefs and Eagles in the Super Bowl. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. But how do you think this coaching staff is coming together, Tom? From the coordinators to some of the more recent hires, how do you think that's coming together for Mike Vrabel?
I think it's probably, in his mind, coming together about as well as he could have hoped. And I think for Robert Kraft, it's probably coming together as well as he could have hoped. Because when we look at his remarks after dismissing Gerard Mayo, the main crisis that he thought confronted the coaching staff was a lack of experience, whether it be Mayo or all the way down the line, and putting people together who hadn't been together. Now, Vrabel's staff is somewhat unfamiliar in terms of all of the individuals working together previously, but the experience quotient is off the charts relative to last year. So I think it's coming together really well. I mean, obviously there's guys who are tied down elsewhere that you're not going to get the pick of the litter of the entire league to say, I'm going to fashion this staff exactly as I want to. But I think it's coming together pretty well if you looked at the Patriots of 2024 and said they just weren't ready on Sundays.
Now, time will tell, but they're spending money on the coaching staff, which I definitely view as a positive. Does this mean they're also going to spend some real money on the roster, which I think many fans are more concerned about? Sure.
I mean, it's kind of a different bucket.
Right.
You have to spend on the players. I mean, you're bound to it by the CBA, and you have that amount of money. So who are the players you're going to chase? And if you're not going to chase them through free agency, which we've talked about a bunch of times now, I just don't think the number of players who hit free agency are as appealing as they used to be, because all teams have so much more money against the cap to spend. Will you be innovative in trying to seek trades? I mean, you can compile the best coaching staff known to man, and if you don't have the players on Sunday to walk out and protect Drake May, then he's not going to be able to throw it to whatever receiver you were able to swing a trade for. So they have to spend the money. How are they going to spend it? Who are they going to spend it on? Is it going to be on Jonnu Smith's and Nelson Aguilar's? Or are they going to get it on, guys like Matthew Judon and Hunter Henry? So that remains to be seen. But to me, they have to spend the money.
I'm curious about the way the coaching staff, the personalities can fit together. Last year, Tom, they had a bunch of first-timers, which we criticized. First-time GM, first-time head coach, first-time coordinators, effectively a first-time offensive coordinator, and Alex Van Pelt as a play caller. So the lack of experience was an issue. This is a very experienced coaching staff, but it is a lot of guys who have been there, done that as head coaches. How do those personalities mix, especially when a number of them have never coached together before?
I think there's going to have to be a tamping down of personal preferences. Like, McDaniel's been a head coach in two different locations. He's been in the league and coached in I don't know how many AFC championships and Super Bowls. He's got a way that he wants of doing things, but I'm sure that he's going to have to look at Mike Vrabel and say, what do you want, Mike? What do you want to see from me? How do you want me to work with Doug? Doug, what do you see from your offensive line if Doug Marrone is indeed the offensive line coach? What's your vision? And then meld them together. So I think when you have people who have great experience in doing something, they're going to bring their own visions to things. But if you're hired by someone else, like if you're hired someplace else to be a talk show host and somebody is above you, you're going to say, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to best serve you? I think Vrabel kind of said that, in service to whatever your team is trying to accomplish, you have to be in a mindset of servitude, I guess.
With the Chiefs winning, going to another Super Bowl, all the comparisons have come up, and over the next 2 weeks, there's plenty of time to talk about all the Patriots and Chiefs comparisons. I'm curious, in your mind, when you look at the three individuals on each side, Andy Reid chasing Bill Belichick, Patrick Mahomes chasing Tom Brady, and even Travis Kelce chasing Rob Gronkowski, I certainly think all three of the Patriots are better right now than all three Chiefs. But in your mind, which debate is the closest? Which Kansas City Chief has the best argument against any of those Patriots?
I would probably say Reid and Belichick at this juncture, because Reid's done it in two different places. He didn't win a Super Bowl with Philadelphia, of course, but he was there multiple times at the highest level, and Bill didn't do it in two places. But Bill was so friggin' good in the first place that he didn't leave for 24 years. So I would say probably Reid, because I think what Brady did is, and we talked about this a lot on BST last week, he's got 7 Super Bowl rings. And he did it in two different places and faced adversity after adversity, whether it be through roster, through drama on the team, reinvented himself, and then went to Tampa and raised a team that had previously and since been just another Jag team. So to me, I would say, the Reid and Belichick comparison would probably be the most worthy. But again, Belichick on game day versus Reid on game day, Andy Reid in the 2000s was in early 2010s too. I mean, you remember with Alex Smith and the Chiefs were against the Patriots in I think it was a divisional or wild card round game, just complete clock mismanagement. Bill never really encountered that. So it's great stories and it is great fodder, but I look at it and say the Patriots are pretty secure overall in their place.
What about Kelsey and Gronk? You talked a lot about Reid and Belichick there. You talked a lot about Brady, Mahomes. What about Kelsey and Gronk? Is that one even close in your mind?
Yeah, it is, just because of the production. And, you see Kelsey certainly losing a step now, and I think that Gronk certainly lost a step at times. But I think the nature of Gronk is a blocker, and I was going to say indestructibility, but that was his destructibility was a big portion of his career as well. I just liked watching Gronk more than I like watching Kelsey. I just thought he was a more spectacular player, but that doesn't diminish Kelsey's resume at all. I mean, he's, to me, the continuous, as you guys are pointing out and bringing up, he is the one thread that runs through the way that Tyreek Hill wasn't able to, or anybody else who was on the Chiefs throughout this run. I mean, Kelsey is right. Is he better than Anthony Gonzalez, and Antonio Gates, and Shannon Sharp, and any other great tight end that we can think of? He certainly has to be way up in the conversation. John Mackey, Dave Casper, Russ Francis, they're all coming out now.
Kellen Winslow, Mike Ditka.
Ditka.
Oh yeah, you got to include those guys. Watching the Philadelphia Eagles, Tom, literally run all the way to the Super Bowl. Do you think that changes how teams view the running back, or is this more specifically Saquon Barkley is just so good?
No, I think it's Philly. I think the number of they have one of the best offensive line coaches in the league, maybe in league history, and his name is escaping me now, but he has been and will continue to be one of the best offensive line coaches that the league has seen, and they just have a litany of guys up front who are road graders. So to me, if you don't have offensive linemen who can perform the way, Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey and all the other guys who've been up front for the Eagles over the years then you're not going to be able to replicate it. You just look at, Buffalo. I mean, they tried to do what the Eagles do, and they couldn't do it. And they're probably not well suited to it the way the Eagles are. The Eagles just roll that tush-push in, and it's not an issue. And to see that not work so often in a critical moment for the Buffalo Bills and them keep going to the well, it's, to me, you're borrowing something that's unique to what the Eagles do. So I just don't think every team can do that.
Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston, joins us every Tuesday here on Jones and Keefe. We call it a Tommy Tuesday. You can check out his work on NBC Sports Boston. That's very catchy. Hat tip to Keefe for that one. Fill me in on this. Were you there for the entire Pete Carroll tenure in New England, Tom?
I certainly was.
You were there for the whole run. Okay, so
the whole run.
What do you think of Pete Carroll being in the NFL, back in the NFL, while Bill is at UNC?
I think there's an adaptability to Pete Carroll that teams don't look at Bill bringing at this point. And look, Pete's probably a bridge head coach, certainly a bridge head coach. And I think when you're bringing in Bill, you're not looking at somebody who views himself as a bridge head coach. So I think that would probably be the easiest differentiator between the two. If Bill comes in, he's going to be new broom sweeps clean. We're going to do it my way. The things that you guys used to do, well, they didn't work, so they're all done. And the Raiders certainly have to admit and acknowledge that, okay, what we've done here hasn't worked. We're going to change the way we're doing things. And Mark Davis spoke about that on Monday. But Bill is a shock to the system in a different way than Pete Carroll could ever imagine being, I think.
You know, looking at this head coaching cycle, do you have a favorite hire and a least favorite hire? And if the favorite hire is Vrabel, give me somebody other than Vrabel.
Fair. I think Ben Johnson to the Bears, and that's the easy one because he was the second most, I think, coveted head coach, but he's going to go someplace where there are offensive pieces in place, certainly with Caleb Williams, and you can be innovative. And his innovation to me was something that you look at, and that enthuses offensive players. That makes offensive players, say, okay, well, if we can get this part down, then that will follow. So to me, watching Ben Johnson put together an offense for Caleb Williams with the pieces in place there is going to be fascinating to watch. And as I'm rolling through the Rolodex of players on their team, I think of a guy like Keenan Allen, but he's a free agent. So I'm actually going to segue to that. Those are the kinds of players, for the hell of it, I'm veering into free agency.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
The Keenan Allens, the Cooper Kupsies, the Khalil Macks, I think those players would have real value to the Patriots on the free agent market. And you want lieutenants. That's what Bill had. That's what every good coach has. You have locker room lieutenants who understand your message and can disseminate it. Who are going to be those individuals for Mike Vrabel here? And can you do it with players who are you don't have background with and are bringing in from someplace else? That, to me, is going to be interesting to watch. I know I veered from the coaching conversation because it was, to me, it wasn't a very sexy group of coaches aside from Vrabel and Ben Johnson in my mind. I mean, look at Bobby Slowick. The guy was, the soup du jour last year. Is Bobby Slowick going to go somewhere? Now he's out of a job. So the offensive coordinator of the year sometimes doesn't really pan out.
No, I think that's fair. Not a good showing from our guy Liam Cohen. My guy Liam Cohen yesterday.
Yeah,
that was
awkward.
That was a rough start. Do you think, Tom? Do you think we're getting the best matchup in the Super Bowl? Best team in the AFC, best team in the NFC, Chiefs and Eagles. Is this the best matchup we could have hoped for? Or were you hoping for somebody else to be here?
I think everybody wants to see something different. I think that Buffalo obviously is the sympathetic choice. And I like Josh Allen. I like the way he plays. I like the way he presents himself. I don't love McDermott, but he has fashioned the culture up there. He's not a great in-game coach. But I think Buffalo would have been a more fun matchup, certainly. And, they beat Detroit. They beat Kansas City. I think they were a better team. I don't think the officiating was that egregious on Sunday to say they got hosed. But I would have rather seen them, and I probably would have rather seen Detroit. So if you gave me Buffalo and Detroit, I would have been delighted as opposed to this matchup.
Speaking of Buffalo, do they even hesitate to bring Sean McDermott back? Or do they think about, maybe we get another guy in here?
Yeah, who's the other guy? That's the thing. Who's the other guy? I just can't imagine.
Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all thinking the same name. Yeah.
I just don't see that as being an antidote. I just, having watched how it unfolded the last 5 years here, post Brady, I just don't see that unfolding in a particular way that would be any executive will look at that or owner will look at that and say, we need to bring that in here.
No, you're right. I agree with you. I probably wouldn't do that either. I think they're an interesting case, though, because it's not a rebuild. Part of the post-Brady Patriots issue was the lack of talent, which Bill was a big part of. But if you go in there, I mean, who's a better big game coach even now, Sean McDermott or Belichick? I think I'd probably take my chances with Belichick.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. But, I mean, you talk about managing the talent, too.
Yeah.
And when Bill goes in, who is he going to look at on his roster and say, we don't need that guy?
Josh Allen. I was going to say, probably, based on the track record, probably Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. See you later.
I don't need him.
I mean, Josh Allen, I mean, you think about Joe Tooney and Shaq Mason. Both guys are still in their early 30s playing playoff-level football on an offensive line, and they've been gone for years from here. And Bill said, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. So, to me, I think that the intermingling of Bill's personnel decisions and what he thinks he can accomplish with the players that he has sometimes is, and the fact that, we can't do this against the cap, we have to build this part of the team. I don't know if it works the same way now. I'm sure it can, and he's the most brilliant in-game coach that you'd ever see because of an understanding of games and situational football, but I just don't see him being as attractive a proposition.
Tom, before we let you go, we were tearing off Super Bowl halftime shows earlier in the program today. You can check those out on the Odyssey app. Do you have a favorite Super Bowl halftime performance? Use whatever criteria you want. Do you have a favorite one? You've covered a lot of Super Bowls. What jumps out in your mind?
I think U2 was spine-tinglingly good because of all the history of what was going on in America at that time and the nature of the game itself. I think Prince was phenomenal, and I liked Pete Townshend's midriff when he went sliding across the stage.
Yeah.
All right, nice.
Very good.
Nice. Those are some very, very memorable ones. There was a couple of GOAT ones there, and also a safe old is how those worked out on the tiers. We would never refer to Tom E Curran that way. He joins us every week on a Tom E Tuesday. Tom, we appreciate the time. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Have a great week.
All right, thank you.
Tom E. Curran, NBC Sports Boston. Check out his work there. Follow him on Twitter at Tom E. Curran. Was I getting my slides across the stage confused? I said Bruce earlier. I thought you got Bruce Crotch on one of those that maybe was NSFW.
It might have been for both.
Yeah, maybe it was Pete Townsend.
These guys move a little bit. They move and shake a little bit. Maybe the wardrobe doesn't fit like it used to as well.
No,
it's my lucky shirt. It's like, you can't wear that anymore.
Who among us doesn't feel that way?
Listen, hand up.
So interesting thing there.
NYSF.
Yeah, exactly, Courtney. Good stuff there from Curran.